Hi, and thank you for watching these videos at the Audrain Museum Network. We really prize our viewers, and we've seen millions of views, thanks to you. Why not take the next step and subscribe, and be notified when we get new content here in the channel. Be a superbird. Come subscribe to the Audrain Museum Network. If you love classic cars, then Donald loves you. The car I'm driving today is a 2013 Lamborghini Aventador LP700. This is a really interesting car because it marks both the beginning and an end. It's amazing to conceive that Giotto Pizzarini's V12 that he designed for the very first Lamborghini, the 350 GT, lasted until the end of the Murcielago production, and from 3.5 liters to 6.5 liters. Absolutely amazing. The flexibility built into that architecture of that engine, that great legendary V12 engine. And in the history of the Lamborghini company, when the Aventador was introduced in 2011, it was only the second V12 in the company's history. But this is also the last of the naturally aspirated V12 engines to come from Sant'Agata Bolognese, or so we're told. When the Aventador production ends with the Aventador Ultime, it will mark a turning point in the history of Lamborghini. As some of you who watch this channel may know, or have known the things that I've written, I love early Lamborghinis. One of my favorite cars I've ever owned was a 1969 Lamborghini Islero. And the specific qualities that Lamborghinis have, especially all driven by that amazing V12 engine, are remarkable. And especially in early Lamborghinis, there's a certain feeling of deliberateness in it. Some call it heaviness, but I prefer to think of it as a deliberate nature. And this very modern Lamborghini, the Aventador, still has that feel. It's a wonderful thing to maintain a brand identity through the driving experience, and I think that Lamborghini has really done that in a really magical way. There are some very special words and phrases that define this car, and one of them is quite interesting. It's magnetorheological, which refers to the very special nature of the shocks in this car. And not only the nature of those shocks, but also their positioning. This is a car with a lateral damping system, such as you'd find on Formula One cars, where the damper, the shock absorber, and the spring are actually horizontally mounted. And it allows the designer to use much wider wheels than they might, also reduces unsprung weight by moving the weight away from the outside and more towards the center line of the car, and provides very precise handling. Most of that effect is felt on the track and not on the street as we're driving today. And in fact, one of the drawbacks of this suspension is the fact that it really transmits a lot of road imperfections into the car. But I think that part of that is part of the personality of this car. It's not meant to be a soft grocery cruiser, and yet it still has a power delivery. Again, those of you who watch this channel and know how I respond to cars know that I like cars that deliver a very even power delivery. I don't like particularly peaky cars or cars that you have to wrangle the necks of in order to get something out of them. And this is a car that has that seamless power delivery from very low RPM. And that's also a characteristic that has been true of Lamborghini V12 engines from the very beginning. They deliver power almost like an American V8. It's seamless and effortless, but it keeps going in a way that V8s run out of breath very soon. The display in front of me displays the tachometer, not the speedometer. I really don't need to know how fast I'm going. But it's got an 8,700 RPM redline. And you know that this engine can produce its power well up to that number. The security as well that the suspension and the all-wheel drive gives you is something that's quite remarkable, and I think, of course, in my case, certainly flatters the driver's ability, and also makes it quite clear that to get anywhere near the limits of this car, you have to be going very fast indeed. The other magical expression that relates to this car is LP, longitudinale posteriore, the traditional design of a Lamborghini mid-engine car. After the transverse mounting of the V12 and the Miura, the Countach and the successors all went with a longitudinal design, which really makes this car an engine and a chassis spine with a couple of seats attached to it. It's quite astonishing. Unlike many enthusiasts, I certainly have nothing against turbocharged engines. Indeed, the power delivery of a turbocharged engine, a modern one, very much suits my driving preferences. But there is something very special about the music that a naturally aspirated engine makes, and especially in a car like this. Just brings a smile to your face and keeps it there. One of the other things about the Aventador, which is very interesting, is that when you're in a Countach, you immediately realize how incredibly claustrophobic it can be. And that feeling really also went over to the Diablo, less than the Countach, and really continued through the Murcielago. This car, while sharing that same basic design architecture, somehow seems slightly airier. I'm not quite sure why, because the windows are not very deep. There's a lot of black in the interior, but somehow I feel that there's more inside this Aventador than in some of its predecessors. And that also goes a long way to making the car feel a little more user-friendly. Although, again, user-friendly. In our recent exhibition, What's the Super in Supercars at the Audrain Automobile Museum, we asked the question, what are those characteristics that define a supercar? Is it just the numbers that it puts up? Is it the 700 horsepower and the 0 to 60 speed and the top speed? Or is it something else? One of the things that many visitors to the show commented on was the fact that they wanted their supercars to have an element of the unusable. And I can understand that, because if a supercar doesn't give you a really special driving experience, then what's the point? And that driving experience has to be allied with the idea that you're not going to use this car every day for every function. And this is a car that you wouldn't, because there's almost no storage space inside, no cup holders. Can you imagine? Well, there must be a cup holder somewhere. But that's not the point of this car. The point of this car is to get in and have a really enjoyable recreational blast. And if you probably want to take a nice week-long or a weekend trip away, you'd probably take something else. But for pure entertainment, the folks at Lamborghini certainly got this one right. And in true Italian fashion, it's a beautiful singer. Today we're driving the brand new Lamborghini Aventador Rhode Island Roads Edition. This is a special vehicle devised by the Rhode Island Department of Transportation to find every pothole and defect in any road in the state. No matter how small or how large, this car can find them. But that's not the point of driving a Lamborghini Aventador, is it?